Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. I am Xinbo Wang, a second-year PhD student. I and my co-authors are from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. The paper I will present is VoiceCoach, interactive evidence-based training for voice modulation skills in public speaking. Voice modulation refers to a manipulation of vocal properties such as pitch, volume, speed, and pause. It is an important and powerful tool that we can have for delivering a public speech. Appropriate usage of voice modulation can foster audience engagement and help convey key ideas. For example, a higher pitch or volume leads to vocal emphasis. Increasing the speech rate expresses excitement, while slowing down and appropriate pauses give audiences time to reflect on the speaker's words and form personal connections with the content. However, it is very challenging for novice speakers to master various voice modulation skills. To improve their vocal delivery, they can train themselves by following the guidelines from the books on public speaking. However, this method suffers from the lack of timely feedback, since it is often difficult for novice speakers to evaluate their own performance. Or they can join public speaking training programs. Coaches will review their performance using videotaping. Still, there's no quantitative measurement for the speaker's performance. Moreover, the feedback from coaches could be subjected to coaches' personal preferences and be inconsistent, which may confuse novice speakers. Several prior studies have proposed computer-aided user interfaces to facilitate the training process. To provide automated feedback on speech quality such as pitch, speech rate, loudness, Log and Robocop adopt threshold-based methods to evaluate speakers' vocal performance. However, they do not consider different sentences and context for different speeches. Narration Coach allows customization for different speeches and further checks whether speakers satisfy the specific requirements. For example, stress the word friendly. However, it is usually difficult for novice speakers to identify suitable requirements for sentences themselves. Besides, there are several training systems to provide effective feedback for self-reflection and practice. For example, Mac and Rockspeed utilize basic chart to give quantitative visual feedback on speakers' vocal performance. However, these visualizations have limited interaction support, which is insufficient for speakers to compare their performance and practice deliberately. To address the aforementioned challenges and help novice speakers understand, practice, and improve their voice modulation skills, we adopted an iterative development approach to design and implement our system. The whole process lasted for 8 months. We worked closely with 4 professional coaches from our industry collaborator, a communication and leadership training company. Specifically, we collected their feedback and updated our system prototypes accordingly. They all are well experienced in the training of public speaking, which helps us gain a deeper understanding of voice modulation skills. In addition, they serve as proxies to our target population, since their training experience makes them better aware of the difficulties that novice speakers may encounter. Also, they have deep insights into the limitations of a traditional method for voice modulation training. Then, we derived 5 design requirements for our system. First, is to inform speakers of their voice modulation. Second, is to provide hints and evidence to guide in potential improvements. Third, is to illustrate evidence with concrete examples. Fourth, is to enable on-the-fly feedback on speakers' vocal performance. Fifth, is to promote the deliberate and iterative practice. According to the aforementioned design requirements, we adopt a data-driven approach to find learning examples and offer personalized guidelines based on sentences structure and semantic meaning of the speech. We select TED Talks as our benchmark dataset, since they are widely considered as the pinnacle of public speaking in terms of high-quality speech content and presentation skills. To increase self-awareness and facilitate self-adjustment, we embed interactive visualizations into our user interface. Here, we'll introduce how our system works in 3 steps. First, Given a speech input, we transcribe audio into words. Then, we segment the text into sentences and compute voice modulations for each sentence in terms of volume, pitch, pause, and speed. To retrieve good learning examples, we first collected over 2,600 speeches from the official website of TED Talks. Then, we compute voice modulations for every sentence in the speech collection. Given the speech query, we retrieve sentences in the dataset that have similar structure and semantic meaning using a sentence embedding method. Then, to find out how to modulate specific phrases of interest, we align the sentence query with the retrieved examples based on part of speech features. For example, after alignment, the phrase "make an enemy" will correspond to "meet a challenge" or "defeat an opponent" in the retrieval result. Finally, all the computational results will be presented in the user interface of VoiceCoach. It enables effective exploration and comparison of voice modulation skills and further provides real-time quantitative feedback on users' performance. The user interface of VoiceCoach consists of 4 coordinated views, including a user panel for users to submit speech query via audio or text input, a recommendation view for presenting summary of different levels of modulation combinations, a voice technique view for users to quickly locate and compare the context of a specific voice modulation skill in either one-line mode or multi-line mode, a practice view for providing real-time and quantitative visual feedback to iteratively practice voice modulation skills. In the user panel, users can input speech by audio streaming, file uploading, or text input. Then the system will parse the speech content into sentences and present them in the middle. Also, it allows users to configure parameters for example retrieval in the later stage. After the users submit the query, the recommendation view presents a visual summary of different combinations of voice modulation techniques and provides users with hints for further improvements. The bar chart at the top shows the general information about the retrieval result with respect to speech conditions, including not aligned, no techniques, and with techniques. For example, the tall dashed outline bar above the word text indicates that recommendation results have insufficient support. The tall gray bar above the word enemy suggests that enemy is the popular word for modulation. The user's vocal performance is encoded by colored symbols to enhance self-awareness. They are placed on the corresponding words of the sentence. In total, there are 8 types of modulations. The n-gram-based hierarchical visualization summarizes the various modulation combinations in the retrieval result. The first row displays the modulation techniques for each word. The second row shows the frequent modulation combinations of 2 adjacent words. They are horizontally aligned at the center of the corresponding 2 words. The height of the bar indicates frequency of corresponding modulation techniques. In addition, an arrow marker is placed next to the bar if the corresponding technique is both applied by the users and found in the recommended examples. In our usage scenario, a user Andy finds that he does not vary his voice at the phrase "make an enemy." He first tries to improve his speaking on an enemy. Then, he chooses the second popular modulation combinations, fast and stress, since the first one does not have any technique to the word enemy. After he clicks the modulation of his interest, the voice technique view presents examples of desired modulation. These TED Talk segments are ranked by the sentence similarity of both structure and semantic meaning between the user input and the segment examples. They are organized in either one-line mode or multi-line mode, with corresponding aligned phrases or words being highlighted. To get more concrete idea for modulation, users can click the words or sentences to listen to its original audio clips. Then, the practice view allows users to deliberately and iteratively practice their modulation on specific words or phrases. Users can click the words in the reference example at the top to set the desired modulation for practice. A real-time feedback chart in the middle provides immediate quantitative feedback on the user's performance. It updates the real-time value of pitch and volume of the current practice simultaneously, while the volume and the pitch of the previous practice are set as the baseline. Other vocal properties can also be inferred from the chart. For example, segments with zero volume indicate the pause, and the speed of the volume wave suggests the speech rate. To evaluate the effectiveness and usability of VoiceCoach, we conducted expert interviews and a user study. In particular, the user study put emphasis on evaluation of recommendation results and practice experience. Here, we reported results for the user study. For details of the evaluation, you can check the paper afterwards. According to the participants' responses on the recommended examples in the voice technique view, we found that 4.21 of top 5 retrieved results satisfy the participants' need. The relevance rate of the recommended examples was 89%. According to the questionnaire, we found that most participants showed a positive attitude towards the recommendation results, especially in terms of decision-making and usability. To evaluate the self-awareness and self-adjustment during practice, we compared the effectiveness between VoiceCoach and listening to audio. According to the Wilcoxon signed rank test, VoiceCoach better helped participants understand and adjust their vocal performance. Furthermore, the ratings of the questionnaire suggest that all participants prefer VoiceCoach for practicing. To evaluate the overall usability and the effectiveness, we collected feedback from participants. The results show that all participants found that VoiceCoach enriched their knowledge about voice modulation and helped them improve vocal skills. Most participants agreed that 4 core components of the system were useful, especially technique labels and parallel alignment in the voice technique view. In general, they claimed that VoiceCoach had good usability. Furthermore, we invited 2 coaches to evaluate vocal performance of 2 groups of people. One group used the VoiceCoach, while the other did not use it. The result indicates that VoiceCoach better helped improve voice modulation skills. In the future, we will extend current dataset to include more diverse presentations, for example, academic talks. Currently, VoiceCoach recommends good learning examples, while exploring bad examples could also be beneficial to voice modulation training. Furthermore, we will improve our recommendation algorithm by incorporating more diverse users' preferences. That's all. Thank you.